All right, greetings and grace to all my political party people out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Clear Perspective Show and another installment of Ask a Black Conservative. And I hope you guys are doing well today. And guys, I'm so excited about this series and being able to bring on, just everyday, savvy conservatives to answer some of the questions of the day that I feel as though are being misrepresented. And the past few episodes, I've had a bunch of testosterone on here, men, answering for me. So now I have some estrogen. So I'm very excited to introduce my next guest. Her name is Nzinga Johnson, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So welcome to the show, everyone. Meet Miss Nzinga Johnson. She's going to be answering some questions for us today.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Awesome stuff. So before we get started, Nzinga, I want you to tell everyone about you. What you have going on. I know that you are an editor of a online publication and so forth, and you're out there in the political scene in Eastern North. I'm sorry, not Eastern North Carolina. That's where I am, but in North Carolina, Central North Carolina, where everything is going down in Raleigh. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I am an editor of a blog called libertycadre.com. Me and some of my friends, we have a lot to say about politics, and if we can fit it into our schedule, we'll write about it. We just started a podcast, Liberty Cadre Podcast. It's only been up and running for about 2 weeks. We've been doing the writing for about a year, so we have a lot of content there if you want to check it out. I do have a YouTube channel. I have one video. It's just my schedule is a little bit crazy because I also work in the Republican Party here in Wake County, and I do a lot of volunteering. I actually worked on a congressional campaign last year, so I was in Eastern North Carolina a lot. I have family out there, and so it was really important to me. So I'm just kind of an activist / trying to be a businesswoman / trying to figure out life. So that's who I am, Nzinga Johnson. Follow me on Twitter.
Okay, we're saying the name correctly, Nzinga.
Nzinga, yeah.
Okay, so let's just jump right on into it. We'll start.
Sure.
Great segue to share with us. How did you become a conservative? Like most Black people, many Black people who end up on the conservative side did not start out as a conservative. And you're quite young. You're a millennial,
right?
So, that's like an anomaly.
Right.
Tell me about you being a millennial and your conservative journey.
Well, I got lucky because I'm a millennial, but I didn't go to public school. My mom put me in a Christian school, me and my brother. And so we got a lot of Bible teaching. We got a lot of kind of discipleship as far as, the Word of God and having a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so I just did not get indoctrinated. And I did not go to a 4-year university. So I went to a community college. So I just never really had a chance to get indoctrinated like that. But I kind of I found out I was a conservative because in a lot of ways I'm socially conservative because I grew up in church. I live in the Bible Belt. But there were some things that I felt about race. Like I felt like I didn't have the upper hand. I grew up without my father. And so there were a lot of hurts and pains there and insecurities that played into how I felt about race relations. Now, my pastor is white. Most of my pastors are white. I go to a pretty mixed church, Black, white, Hispanic. And so I don't really know where it came from. No one taught me that. My mom didn't teach me that. It's just, I think it's maybe generational or something. And anyway, so I had those feelings. And so a friend of mine would post things on Facebook that would really tick me off. And then finally, one day I got really mad at one of her posts. And I felt like it was the Holy Spirit said, "Why are you angry?" And then I knew, okay, I need to look more into why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And so I did. I started researching. I started reading. I started reading about the Founding Fathers, the Constitution. And I found, hey, I agree with all of these things. And what does it really mean to be a conservative? And I didn't become a Republican until just recently, like sometime in January, something like that. So I never considered myself a Republican because I am a millennial. I want to be different and unaffiliated. But I said the only way to really be an activist and to really change things is to kind of be a part of the party. So I did. And so that's kind of a short story how I became a conservative.
Okay, so you mentioned your friend posted something on Facebook that upset you. So what, at the time, were you thinking more from a leftist standpoint? What was it exactly that upset you, that made you say, why do I feel triggered?
Well, I just believed, like I said, I was never taught, but I just believe that if you're Black in America, you just are, it's unfortunate. and you just don't have the upper hand in a lot of ways. And some people kind of get through and they become lawyers or actresses and singers or whatever, but for the most part, you're pretty much screwed if you're a Black American. So the post that she posted was Ben Shapiro before he got really big, and he was kind of doing college tours. And he was talking about race and how, I think it was about affirmative action, if I'm not mistaken. It's this analogy he used to use a lot about why he can't be an NBA star. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's a Jew. It's just because he's short and doesn't have any talent. And so that's the way we should look at things. It's pretty much basing things on people's character and not their race or their skin color or whatever. I think that's what it was. It was about 2015, I think, when that post happened. So I can't really remember for sure, but it was something about race for sure.
Okay. So what would you say to anyone that would push back with you and push back at you and say, oh, of course she would be conservative. She was sheltered. She was, in this Christian environment, and her pastors are white. Of course, that's natural.
No one ever talked to me about politics, ever. Like, I can't remember that, like, we had political science or government, you're learning like the basics of how government works in high school. But the guy that's my teacher, we're still friends to this day, and we almost disagree on everything politically, but he never put his political views into play. The only time I remember someone talking to me about politics was in a class. There was the Democratic primaries, and I had the homework, because I was in high school at the time. I had the homework of researching Obama, and he was talking about universal health care. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. we all get to go to the doctor for free and the government pays for it. And my teacher happened to be Canadian, and she kind of told me what it's really like. That's the only time. And so I never had anyone tell me anything politically or which way I should lean, except for when it came to like abortion or gay marriage, because it's against the Bible. And so unless it was straight up in the Bible, do not, like, for instance, do not shed innocent blood. Oh, this is why we don't agree with abortion. That's the only time I was talked to about politics. And it wasn't until I started researching and comparing and contrasting that I came down to my viewpoints.
Gotcha. Okay. So transitioning, let's talk about you as a millennial. What has been the feedback of you among your peers? Would you say you're in an echo chamber of just conservatives? Or because you mentioned that you have a friend that you guys disagree on everything politically. Was that before you became aware that you were conservative, or what? What's your life like now with your peers?
So on Facebook, I'm friends with people all over the country. Like, I even have a friend on Facebook from Israel. 99% of these people I've never met face to face, and it's kind of like I hope to one day, maybe at some kind of rally, or if I ever travel the country, like, I would love to see these people and just sit down and talk to them, have a cup of coffee. So I'm kind of in an echo chamber in that regard, but it's impossible to be a conservative in America and be in an echo chamber. You're constantly getting the other side. Now you have to go and, like, I had to go and search out what the people on the right would say. Like, it's impossible to live in an echo chamber. So I would say, no, I don't. I have a lot of family that disagrees with me, and they let me know. And we have like we have a family group text or something, and maybe I'll say something, and it's like this fight ensues. Like, it can be pretty bad, and a lot of people have given up. So when I first started saying things on Facebook and on social media about conservatism and just different things that maybe I agreed with Ted Cruz about something or whatever, or Rand Paul, like, you need to change your perspectives. You should read more, that kind of thing. All of those people gave up. So, and most of those people now encourage me to keep going, because I think they feel like this is something that God wants me to be involved in. And so most of them have given up because I'm just too stubborn to just to just lay down and take it. And I'm not going to stop speaking out. That's just not a part of my personality. But for the most part, it's been hard because I've lost some friends that say, I'm no longer talking to you, and I found out we're not friends on Facebook, and I don't speak to them anymore. Not very many, but just a few. Or relationships are weird with people. Like, they see you and we used to be really cool, and it's kind of like, hey, now you just know that it's not going to be the same, and it probably won't ever, unless they change their minds. Because I'm certainly not changing my mind, because it's the truth. So.
Awesome sauce. Again, you're my little spirit sister, and I feel your pain in that very same regard. relative to family members and so forth. I have that same sort of testimony, but I have just decided I'm not speaking about politics with family or friends just to preserve
Yeah.
peace. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I know exactly what you mean. The relationships feel weird, and
Mhm.
I don't necessarily feel welcome in some places. Sometimes I just kind of feel tolerated by my family members. You know what I mean? Except for like my immediate mother and stuff like that. But in any case, I feel your pain. So we're
Yeah.
going to move on to the next topic. Feminism. As a young Black American
Mhm.
conservative woman, what is your take on feminism right now in the culture and as it's being, given to us?
Mhm. I, feminism. Ever since I've known what it was, I thought it was weird. This is before conservatism, before Trump, before commentary and all of that. I started listening to. I just thought it was weird, and to me, there were women who wanted to control men. And then I start digging into the history of feminism and learned that there's been 3 waves now, and now they're fighting for things that they already have. We want the same rights. And I'm like, well, I've seen people interview feminists after feminist after feminist. What rights are you wanting? And they can never name a right. And somehow men are in charge when we're doing better in school. Even in the Black community, women are dominating men as far as education, how much money they make, and all of that jazz. And so I think it's just a bunch of insecure women, I'll be honest, that are hurting from whatever some man did to them. And so they take up a cause so that they can feel powerful, when really the thing that they are so religious about is a lie. And so that's kind of my take on it. And I know that's kind of spiritual, but like I went to the Kavanaugh hearings. I was in DC during that time, and women were literally in the halls of the Senate. They were literally, or the halls of the senators' offices. Women were literally weeping. Nothing had happened to them. They would go into so and so's office. They'd come out crying, and I was standing back because I didn't want to engage, because people were yelling at each other and phones were going up, and just in case something viral happened, and I didn't want to be a part of it. But I kind of stood back and watched, and I was just like, these are a bunch of hurting women that just their insecurities are lying to them, and that's kind of what I think. And I think feminist targets like a certain kind of personality. Like you and I probably have that personality because we're strong and determined and all of those things that like a strong woman has. I have a lot of those attributes, but it doesn't it doesn't attract me because I'm not insecure. Like I have insecurities, but I'm not so insecure that something like that would deceive me. And I think it's like this idea of you are strong and you are powerful and you are this and that. Well, if you're all those things, do you really have to promote it? They do it with deodorant now and lotions and shampoos and like this strong, like you're a strong woman, you can do anything. And they'll show a woman in a boardroom, like you can do all of those things and be all of those things, but still be a feminine, tender woman when you get home, cook for your man and love on each other. Like you don't have to be hard. And I think for the most part, that's kind of that's making it kind of makes you want to stand off from that. Like, no, I don't really want to be that hard woman that doesn't have a man and really wants one, but also wants to trash him at the same time. So it's not attractive to me, but I can see why it would be attractive to some women who are maybe a little bit more insecure. And not trying to put myself on a pedestal or anything. I think we're all prone to something, but I think feminists in general, it has really gotten our generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with that, and I would even take it a step further in terms of how it is that you saw them crying and so forth. There's been an indoctrination that's been taking place from pre-K through to
Mm-hmm.
graduate school. In my opinion, since the advent of the Department of Education around the 1979, I think is when it came out. And I really believe now, looking back, and then looking at what is going on currently, that there was a concerted effort by those on the left, even though, because you know how they institute things, it always starts very good for the good of.
Right.
But I really think that the Department of Education was created so as to begin to be a vehicle for indoctrination into
Mm-hmm.
schools and so forth and so on, so that they would have by 2019 a very sheep-like mindset of voters, namely your generation and part of my generation, to buy into things like feminism and these mindsets and these designer degrees that people get, your women's studies, your gender studies,
Right.
things of that nature, so that they could have someone to vote for the Hillary Clintons and the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders, and they almost got that. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're just so distraught, because they have invested 30 some years in the indoctrination process, and it still didn't yield what they thought. So with that being said, it's not surprising to me that you would see these young ladies in the halls of Congress weeping about a non-issue, really. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they do vote issues and so forth. And to your other point, I would also agree that I'm not attracted to this whole women's empowerment type movement. And I kind of asked myself, like, okay, like, what is there anything really wrong with me? But I don't find myself attracted to it for the very reason that you said. Like, all of this, constant, it seems disingenuous sometimes. Like I don't trust it. Understand?
Like, why are you pushing it on me so hard? There's something wrong with that when someone's like, you must be this, and I'm like, why?
You know what I mean? And like, again, I have strong, robust relationships with women. You know what I mean? But I find a lot of this women's empowerment type things that people are pushing, it just seems, like you said, it's out of a product of kind of insecurity and women just really wanting deep relationships with one another, but they are congregating around things that are very, superficial at the end of the day. And again, I'm all for women's empowerment. Don't get me wrong. I've gone to women's conferences, and like I said, I'm connected with you. I have deep, robust friendships with my girlfriends. You know what I mean? These are the things that I value. But I like you. I look at it, I'm like, wow, why? Why is this? And even with the Black community too, how we are constantly, it's like we have an inferiority complex that we have to talk ourselves out of. You know what I'm saying? Or affirm ourselves out of. You know what I mean? I'm Black girl magic. I'm Black boy joy, or I'm a woman, hear me roar type of thing. And I said, when you are constantly emphasizing that, it makes me feel as though maybe you're not as secure in those places. And again, I'm all for encouraging women, empowering women, and saying, go girl, you know what I'm saying? And all of that, but it's just kind of a weird place. Go ahead.
Yeah, another point too is the part that I really, really dislike, the main part of the third wave feminism that I really dislike is the bashing of men. It's men's fault for everything, except for men have always fought in the wars. They've always tried to save the women and children from slavery or whatever have you. Like, men have been the first defense at all, throughout human history, but somehow they're the enemy of women. Doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Okay, give you that. But like, I like to listen to this lady, Camille Paglia. I don't know if you ever heard of her. Or Paglia. Her name is spelled Paglia, but it's Italian, so it's said differently. But anyway, she's a feminist, a second wave feminist. So she doesn't like third wave. She's an atheist, and she considers herself transgender. But she says a lot of right wing kind of things, or like, it's just common sense. Right. And so she's a professor, so she studies art and history throughout human history. And one of the things that she brought up in a talk was that, in a talk in England, was that she's kind of nervous about the transgender thing and like the making men effeminate, because like, take the Romans for instance. When the civilization first began, the art showed them like robust men and like muscular and strong. As the civilization aged, near the end of it, the art showed men kind of like wet noodles, and they were more feminine. And that's when you had some kind of outside, like, masculine, really toxic masculine people coming in, like the Huns or something like that, that would take over the civilization. So she's very concerned about Western civilization, and she's wondering if it'll be intact for much longer, because we see in England, it's already happened, where they have, like, I would call it an invasion of refugees, which are really like 35-year-old men coming in, and they're just completely changing the culture. And the police are afraid to do something because they don't want to be called racist. So you have like the the Western man is like becoming this feminine wet noodle who can't stand up to women because he's going to get called out for rape or whatever. And then you have the woman that's standing up, but she's not made to carry that weight of a country. And then you'll have something happen. And so I think that's the dangerous part about feminism, is not just what it's doing to the woman but it's what it's doing to the family and what it's doing to the man. And like, you have people like Jordan Peterson popping up who have gotten incredibly popular. And Jordan Peterson is not a super charismatic dude. Like, there's no reason that he should be so popular, but he's saying things to young men that they want to hear, which is take responsibility, don't be afraid to talk to women, that kind of thing that men need. And it's almost like they're getting fathered by this dude from Canada. So he's fathering an entire generation, because feminism and other things have completely damaged what manhood is in America. And so that's the other thing about feminism that's really scary.
That's an awesome point, because and now what you're saying reminded me of the problem that I do have with all of this, focus on women. It is the deification of women is what that's the problem that I have with a lot of the women's empowerment events and talk and stuff like that. It's the deification of women, and then, like you said, it is the emasculation of men. And me, as you didn't grow up with my father, although later in life I did develop a relationship with my dad and heal some of those wounds. But I didn't grow up with a father, so I don't know what it's like to be protected, provided for. Like a father or man just going hard because this is my daughter or this is my wife. I don't have a concept of that. Okay. And so I kind of get a little pissy, and excuse my French, but you know what I'm saying, a little salty when I hear a lot of this, because it's again emasculating men to the point that, like, what I'm looking out for your generation, I just feel sorry for you guys. And even for me, finding a mate that I wouldn't be afraid to get up at night and go to the door and deal with an intruder. You know what I mean? It's like, although you are me type of thing in today's climate, So I definitely understand what you're saying with that. It's really like a deification of women. And again, to draw that politically, I've done a series of videos where, this focus on sexual assault and sexual abuse and so forth. It is pandering to the women vote. That is why we're seeing it. It started right after Hillary Clinton lost the election. They had to go in and re-up and come up with a new strategy, because the racial police brutality and all of that, those narratives have been exhausted. You can't really intellectually honestly bring those narratives nowadays. You know what I mean? You can, obviously they still have weight, but with the Black conservative movement gaining traction, as they say, it only takes about 5% of the Black vote to kind of peel away for them to really be in trouble. And so I think they recognize that with the election of Trump, seeing that more Black people voted for him than other Republican presidents. So I think they said, okay, who's the next? Who has the next political capital? And women right now have the most political capital. I think that's another reason that we're seeing it blow up to just be exhausted right now.
I agree.
So yeah. All right. So let's talk about, in light of politics and them switching up issues, immigration. What are your thoughts on immigration?
I did an article on my blog site about immigration, specifically how it affects the Black community. And what I found, I didn't know what I was going to find going in. I can't remember what prompted that, but I was like, oh my God, it's hurting Black men the most. And then obviously Black women, and then it also hurts other Hispanics. But mass immigration, illegal immigration, and not nipping that in the bud is ultimately going to hurt our community. I mean, that's just the way it is. And liberals will say that we're lying about that, but I mean, there's a economist named Vernon M. Briggs. I think it's Vernon Briggs for sure. He did a study on it, and it shows that the Black man is the one that's going to be it's going to be more detrimental to him. And so I think somehow Republicans, conservatives, they need to make it not a race issue. I don't want to play identity politics. The thing I don't like about identity politics is most of it is untrue. But this specific issue is very much true because Black men disproportionately take up a lot of like the low income jobs. So then you have this group of people who will work for much less. What's going to happen to Black men? Um, there's a lot against the Black man, and I just don't think we need another one. And so I'm completely against illegal immigration. I'm this close from being against amnesty because because the left tells us Black people that you're in jail because of little things like just a little bit of marijuana, and you get put in jail for 20 years or whatever. They tell us that the system is against us. But then they have these other brown people they want to bring in, and they want to give them amnesty. Well, I'm like, okay, how about this? If you give them amnesty, then you need to give all the Black people, or some of the Black people at least, who aren't in jail for something violent, give them amnesty as well, and then maybe we can talk. But they won't do that, right? So it's a lie. They want the votes here and they want the votes there. So for us, they'll tell us a lie and let us believe it and let us stew in anger and never get out of welfare or what have you. And for them, they're like, oh, we're going to give you amnesty and you can just come in and be free. It is so totally unfair. It makes me so mad because people haven't opened their eyes to see it, and that like Black political commentators don't talk about it. At least I haven't seen it. And then the people who maybe aren't commentators and don't read and they're not nerds like us, they're too busy trying to work and feed their kids to know this thing is going on. And so they're really using the lifestyle against us, that a little bit poor, you're just trying to work, you're working several jobs, you got your children, or maybe you're a single mom, you got a few kids or whatever, try to keep us there, but then give these people freedom to move on. And what's going to happen? The dreamers have done well. Most of the dreamers are doing so much better than me. I've seen them on TV. They're lawyers. They have degrees. They have jobs in Fortune 500 companies. And I'm like, geez, I'm an American citizen and I can't even get that.
Right. Interesting. What was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. I'm trekking with you on that. Continue.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's a complete lie. It's a lie in that they lie to us and keep us down with welfare, for instance. And for them, they like, let the dreamers dream on and let them succeed and prosper. Like, can I get some succeed and prosper over here? Can me and my family get that?
Yeah. What I was going to say, what you're describing is that soft bigotry of low expectation, right? Where they're, like you said, they've given us, what they're doing is reinforcing the inferiority complex that slavery left, and
Right.
They feel as though, okay, that's enough for them. You know what I mean? They relegated us to, again, soft bigotry of low expectation. They don't have much expectations of us, and unfortunately, because of the inferiority complex that slavery left, and all the things that snowballed out of that, is kind of, I can understand why they would say that, but it is so obviously inaccurate. And then when the illegals or whatever, they come over, it's like, okay, you not only can we'll give you amnesty, but come to the welfare office and you'll get all the food stamps, you'll get all the all the Medicaid you need, you get Pell Grants and access to all of these things.
Yeah.
That, and I've seen this firsthand even with my aunt, who's like $5 above the income limit for Medicaid. She really needs Medicaid. She's on Medicare. She has to also buy that supplemental insurance to cover the 20% and all that, which is a market for AARP and all. Anyway, has to do all of that. And I said, let's go appeal this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Denied her. Just
right.
Bureaucrats can't deal. She's an American and there's a demonstrated need. I'm taking her bill. Yeah. And again, you have an illegal that comes to the state, can march right in there and get all that they need. So
and that 100% happens. They lie and say they don't get welfare and stuff. They get it. I haven't. Now I'm not gonna lie and say I've seen it firsthand, but I have credible sources that will take women like a Black woman out in Durham, and she'll take them and try to help them and get their lives and up and running. She'll take them to the social services office, and there'll be people there that speak Spanish, and they get ahead. They'll get ahead of the line, literally, and she'll be like, "Hey, we've been waiting here for hours. Can we get some help?" And they'll take the Hispanic lady before they take the Black lady.
I have a cousin in Boston, shout out Nicole, who gave me a similar story. She's like, the head of kind of like the social services area in her state, and she gave a similar narrative where there is definite precedent or preference, I'm sorry, for illegals, and it's just unfortunate. And again, what it's all about is them importing voters. That's what the whole voter suppression issue is about. I'm sure you know, because again, as Black people, we always get the party started from a political standpoint. They always want to attach any new minority issue onto the civil rights struggle. So, in other words, they try that most Black liberals who are in favor of amnesty and this whole border issue are doing so because they have been indoctrinated that, oh, their plight is similar to yours, so you should be sympathetic to them.
Yeah, I've gotten that junk before.
They exploit, again, they continue to exploit the inferiority complex that slavery left. They continue to equate anytime they're ready for to bring a new way of life, if you will, into the culture, be it LGBT issue, be it this women's thing, be it illegal. They always want to equate it to, well, the civil rights. You're fighting for civil rights. And we as Black people, like idiots, go and cape for that, right? Only to continue to be on the last on the totem pole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really weird. And that's what we're seeing with the illegal immigration issue and particularly the voter suppression, trying to equate that to the immigration people, because they don't want IDs to be checked. They just want you to be able to take your utility bill with your address and go vote. And I was shocked to death with my first time voting in North Carolina. My heart sank. I was like, that's all you need for me to vote? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh. So this is the real thing, and I think the young lady, what's her name, in Georgia, is championing this voter suppression issue. It's not any voter suppression, and it is, and someone said before, it's an insult. I remember hearing them talking about that, about calling ID, asking for ID to vote suppression. Like when you have to have an ID to get on a plane, you have to have an ID to get into your school. You know what I mean? Buy cigarettes. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. Yeah, we always get the lowest on the totem pole, and I think part of that is because we don't have any leaders like Malcolm X. We don't have any leaders like Martin Luther King who rally the community. We don't have any of that. We get people who just say, we get the Jesse Jacksons and the Al Sharptons who just, they rally anger, which keeps people at home. That's why we don't vote. That's why we don't have a say-so in what goes on in America, because we need people that are going to stand up and say, hold on, wait a second, what's this going to do to the Black community? And then be honest about it. Like, I know, I remember there's a guy, I watched an interview with him and Tucker Carlson, and he marched with Martin Luther King, and he's not as famous as some of the others who are now like leftists, but he said he feels that they're selling the Black community out to line their pockets. And Tucker was like, whoa, because he wants to believe that everyone's genuine and they're just fighting for what they believe in, but they're wrong. And he said, you really believe that? He said, when they're getting rich and the rest of us are getting poor, yes, I do. And honest to God, I believe it.
Absolutely. I have a video on my YouTube channel. Basically, I'm calling it racism. Race is now an industry, right? The industry of racism, right? Because it pays right now to continue that narrative. And that's why when you see people like you, that's why they hate Black conservatives, because we are challenging that concept. Not that obviously we always have to say this and I hate it. Okay, of course, racism, there are relics of it that are still present, but to try to speak to us and get us to respond as if it was between the 1700s and the 1960s, again, it's just now it's intellectually dishonest. You know what I mean? Like hip hop culture has done too much to unify the culture, even more than the civil rights era.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like your generation, my generation, we're just kind of like, we have no concept of it, of discrimination in the way that maybe our parents and even our parents didn't get it like their parents. You know what I mean? Down the line. So they are constantly trying to revive or keep this alive. And that's why again you see them coming for Black conservatives. If we even just hint at the fact that racism has improved, they're coming from our necks, and that is because many people's livelihoods are attached to racism never ever going away. You have people, getting professorships, you know what I mean, in the African American Studies department to spew this, in all sorts of psychology departments, writing books, documentaries, all kinds of jobs are for you in Hollywood to write scripts and so forth. Rappers get to do great movies. I mean, write songs about it and be the new in my opinion, toy revolutionary for racism and all of that. So it's just a lot to unpack, and it is not far-fetched to think that there is indirectly. Obviously, there's no, you just can't go to the government and be like, okay, massa, give me my check because I'm still propagating racism out here in these streets, right? But it's indirect, very indirect, and I think something that's very understood, right? You will gain favor, as we see with Jussie Smollett. You gain favor, right? That's where the privilege is. The privilege in culture today is in what your politics are. And if your politics are on the left, and particularly if you're influential, you can get 16 counts, just vanish.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, you're right.
So okay, I'm moving kind of slow here. All right, so with that, reparations, since we're talking about racism and so forth, what is your thoughts on reparations, and how do you feel about
that? If they gave it to me, like, is it gonna be cash? Like, how much is it gonna be? What does that look like? Is it gonna be a house? Is it gonna be a Cadillac? Like, like I think I heard a joke once that said if Black people got reparations, and let's say it's a check, there would be like a whole lot more. Like Cadillac would just be like, and this is back when like the Escalade first came out. When I was in high school, it was like, oh, Cadillacs will get some good sales or something. I don't know. I just think it's pandering, obvious pandering. I mean, it's so blatant. It's kind of sickening, and it's what's the word? It's kind of I can't think of the word, but it's like pandering to Black people, but in a very low,
vibrational, like very low, right?
Yeah, like I think Kamala Harris has been talking about reparations. She's also the same woman that, like, oh, a press release came out, oh, she likes to wear Converse sneakers. And it's the same woman who was like, oh, like, she's cool, right? Like, I love Converse sneakers. That's my thing. And then she's like, oh, and I used to smoke weed and listen to Tupac, which found out that's a lie. So it's like all of this pandering, but it's kind of
insulting.
Yeah, that's the word. It's insulting because it's not real stuff. It's not immigration. It's not the justice system and the courts. It's not things like that. It's not education and school choice. It's let me send you a check and everything will be okay. If you just vote D, that's the biggest problem with reparations. If they gave it out, if they sent me a check, I'm going to cash it. I'm not going to lie. At the same time, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for equal outcome, which I think we have for the most part. But I think reparations is not a conversation that we should be having, because like you said earlier about the civil rights and how things have been improving at each generation. And the thing is people say, oh, like they have all these complaints about America. Like, have you been to other countries? Because we're pretty darn good. We have a pretty great country, and it's about what we're pursuing. So the founding fathers had this idea that it wouldn't be about race, it would be about the content of your character. And they had all these kind of cool ideas about natural laws and God-given rights and all of these things, or excuse me, natural rights and God-given rights. But they knew we weren't there. They were geniuses. They weren't stupid. And so we're always pursuing something better. So why don't we leave the past behind and then talk to Black people about real things that are really bothering us, and not reparations, because we could get the reparations and still be in the same place we're in, because the reparations will be gone. Like, you got a bunch of people that don't know how to budget and don't know how to work with money. What is that going to do? It's going to leave us poor in like 2 years or less. So that's my thoughts.
That's interesting that you say that it's pandering, because I'm thinking 2 tiers about it, similar to what you're thinking. First of all, I feel like it's just kind of like the political booty call that they make to the Black community every election cycle. They're bringing snacks instead of Vaseline, so reparations are like snacks.
I love it. Yeah.
They're like snacks. Ooh, we're ready to talk about reparations.
Yeah.
And see, I'm offended by that because I'm like, listen, if you were really serious, again, they think we're stupid. If you were really serious about that, you would have been talking about reparations at Reconstruction. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When the Emancipation of Proclamation was signed and it promised the 40 acres and a mule, right? They were really serious. That would have been what we needed. Or at the very latest, if during the Civil Rights era, right, when we got all the rights and all that, that would have been the perfect time, right? If they were serious. And then the other tier that I could look at it, and then again, relative to the calculation of the left, and to me, the new plantation, I believe that new plantation that we're talking about now started in the 1960s, right after that, the Voting Act and all of the feats that Dr. King and all the supporting cast brought to the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that is where it all started, this new plantation, the calculating of it to do these Jedi mind tricks on Black people about these things. That's exactly what it is. And then lastly, my thought is, again, if you want to, because I said, okay, I'm like you, like if you send me a check, I'm gonna take it, but I don't like, how do you execute it at this point in history? Like, how do you really execute that? Now, being the solution oriented person that I am, I feel like one way that they could do it is just forgive all of the student loans of every Black person that is a descendant of slaves. Just wipe it off the books. And I say that because I would benefit from it. Just, you know what I mean? That could be one way to show some good faith. Just forgive everybody's student loan. They're trying to do some reforms to student loans right now anyway. So who can I write that proposal up to? Since you Republican, how about we just forgive the student loans of every descendant of a slave person?
There you go. Done.
That's my thought. Okay, so that's the thought on reparations. Okay, so now with the current events. Jussie Smollett, you know what I mean? The hoax of Jussie Smollett, the hoax of the Russia collusion. What are you thinking on that?
I have an issue with Jussie Smollett, and I think most of the country does. But there are still remnants of people that have come at me on social media because I like to joke. I'm not. I take it serious. Like if it happened in Raleigh, I would be really, really upset. But it didn't. So it's like something that we don't really have to deal with. It's just kind of like we can make fun of it and laugh at the memes. First of all, the memes were glorious about the Jussie Smollett thing. I was in stitches for like a week over people's memes. But anyway, like we could make fun of it. And so I said something making fun of it. Like if I ever come in contact with the law, and I get in trouble, I'm going to be like the gayest, blackest, most pro-Black leftist that you will ever find, because apparently that's what works right now. And it's like, oh no, that enough evidence isn't out. I'm like, excuse me? Like, even I watched some CNN videos just today, and they're even like, man, we don't know what happened. CNN, they're like, yeah, there's still some questions that need to be answered concerning the aftermath when he got off. The drop charges, even they're like, this is interesting. And so I'm like, everyone else in the country knows that he lied. And then not only did he lie, but he got off because he knows the right people. So there's a two-tier justice system, and we know that. So the rest of us need to be really careful. And then I was writing an article on it actually earlier today. I haven't finished it, but I said there's more evidence that Jussie lied and then got off because of his connections than there was Russian collusion. Right. And people still believe Jussie's innocent and that Trump is not. So I'm like, it's just whose side you're on type of thing. And so he got off because he knows some people that knew some people, and he did some community service for like 18 hours, and then he's like, oh no, you can keep the $10,000, which is probably a drop in the bucket for him. And there's so much. I was listening to evidence today, And there's so much evidence that this man did it. But what's interesting is that they never said he was innocent. If you notice, they never said, we found out he didn't do anything, he's innocent. They just said, we're dropping the charges. And there was even, there's the assistant state attorney even said, like, we know that he did it. And I'm paraphrasing. I have the actual quote somewhere, but he pretty much said, we know he did it, but there's bigger fish to fry, and there's more violent crime in Chicago, so we're just gonna let this one slide by.
Right.
So.
Right. And see, again, people not understanding the gravity of it, because I mean, I don't think that he needs 20 years in prison. You know what I mean? But a good, 3 to 12 months, I think would do good to behind bars for him to really get the revelation that you're not special, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But what I was gonna say about that, I think that with him, this whole $3,500 check, because I think that was the first thing that they tried to say was, that he gave that for personal training. Okay, like, again, they think we're stupid. Like, we know if anyone's committing a crime, like how many people lie on their taxes and are saying, okay, this $3,500 is for a business trip, but it's really for a vacation. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So again, it's just more insulting of our intelligence about that. But the reason that it's a problem is that he could have created a race war. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of, the climate as it is right now, and the way in which he narrated what happened to him, and then the way that people were responding. It just put another check in the box towards that animosity. But which also brings me to the next point relative to Trump and people's, like, hardcore visceral dislike for this man in a year and a half span. It's not even been a full 2 years yet, has it? Well, it has been 2 years. I'm sorry.
2 years and some change.
Yeah, 2 years and some change. But even before it was 2 years and some change. The next day after he was elected, like it is like, whoa, like the power of the media, it is insane. First of all, I was not a Trump supporter initially. I was actually initially when I was in Atlanta, I was on the Never Trumper train. I was about to be on that train because I was connected with the Republican Party in Georgia, and that was kind of one of the things that they were rolling out.
Yeah.
That's not, and initially when he first was entertaining running in the I want to say like 2012. Yeah, he just was kind of talking about it. I remember we started visiting CPAC, and I was like, I wish he would run. I would vote for him just because I respect entrepreneurs. I know business minds, and I know that the country needs to be run like a business. But then once I started listening to him in the debates and things like that, I was like, I was like, no. You know what I mean? So that was just kind of like my stance. I was like, yeah, never Trump right now. Not him. And but then as I started listening to him, and then I started to do because it was the same thing with Barack Obama. I was kind of like not on board, but then I said, let me just kind of give him a chance. And then I was just this close to maybe entertaining him, even as a conservative, until he backtracked on his word when he talked about not throwing Jeremiah Wright under the bus. Because that speech that he gave about Jeremiah writing, I just like, oh yeah, he's standing by his friend. And then a few weeks later, he was like, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, okay, I see what this is. And then doing more research, I was like, no. So, but it's the same with Trump, but in the opposite, right? Where I was thinking, I was like, he is an operative of the Democratic Party, and the Republicans are the controlled opposition, and they're letting this happen because they're so powerful that they've even bought off the Republicans. So he becomes the president. And that's how he got the nomination. I didn't think he was going to win, but then the more I started listening to him, then I was like, okay. And then he won. And I remember praying like against like her not winning, because he was, you think the two choices is like, let's go with him.
Right.
But anyway, all of that to say, to act like he was this person that that's been premeditating being the president, and he just had these dreams of being the president, and now he's the president, and he has all this. He needs to bring white nationalists back to the white supremacy to the nation, and he's inspiring white supremacists. It's intellectually dishonest, particularly if you go back and look at his history. I'm not sure if you've ever watched any of his videos from the 80s.
Just a few.
My God, I'm like, this guy, he's consistent. He's saying the same thing about Russia, about China, and all of them on his foreign policy, And then those same people, Oprah, everyone's suggesting that he run back in 1980.
Right.
You know what I mean? And again, not too long ago, you always hear everyone's talking about it, like, rappers wanted to be him. Barack Obama even on record saying that, the American dream is Donald Trump. Now, all of a sudden, he's Satan and he's racist.
Right.
And then this whole grab him by I love it when I'm hearing everybody's problem with him is this one at Access Hollywood media soundbite that they threw out there hoping would stick, and people were still sticking on that. Grab him by the P. I'm like,
which, by the way, he said you can. They will let you, is what he was saying. Which I'm sure you know, and I certainly know some girls who, if this guy has this much fame, they're like, they'll let him.
Because look at the case of the victims of R. Kelly. The most of them were adults who went to that. You know what I mean?
Well, he's R. Kelly. Like, oh, he's Donald Trump. He's famous and rich. Like, yeah, women will do that. I'm sorry, people. I know we talked about feminism. They don't want to believe that women will do that. Women want to be with a dude with power, even if it's just for a few minutes.
And they will let you grab them by the feet.
Yeah, they certainly will.
I'm sorry, that's what you said. It is absolute fact. And the women that are offended by that know that.
Yeah, they know it.
They know it. And the only reason that they are offended by it is because the media told them to be offended by it.
Right.
And so anyway. So relative to that and the Russia collusion, how are you thinking?
Our justice system is corrupt. I'm not going to say it's every single person. There's something wrong, and I hate to use like those slogans, but the swamp needs to be drained in that manner. Like, I was watching Kim Fox. There was an interview she did, I think it was last year, and she was talking about her life and how she grew up as a little girl, and her mom. You remember I told you about my life. No one ever told me a lot of these things that she and I both believed. At least I believed at one point. She said, "You're a little black girl." Her mom told her, "You're a little black girl. Your life is going to be hard." And she was in a courtroom, I think, and she saw everyone stand up for the judge when he walks in. And she said, "I want to be a judge." And her mom said, "Well, you have to be a lawyer." So that's why she became a lawyer, is because she wanted that respect. Now, I didn't watch the whole video, but a lot of what she said in the beginning, from her development age to when she ran against her boss to be the state attorney in Illinois, it was all driven by insecurity. The problem that I have is that when you have someone that insecure, even if they don't seem it, power and position and money does not mean you're not insecure. You have someone that insecure, they're prone to whatever. Because if she wanted to be, this is all speculation, obviously, but I'm just saying, if she wanted you want power that badly, that you want everyone to stand up when you're in the room, what will you do to get it?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so Obama's chief of staff gives her a call. You're going to say no? That's power. That's one day you could run for senator. You could run for Congress or something like that. And so I think that happens a lot. Whatever it's fueled from, insecurity or whatever, I think that happens more than we think. My problem is I'm like, who is Jesse that he's so important that they had to call up the big dogs to come and save him? I'm like, what is he doing? What is his role in all of this? Because he's not that smart. I'm sorry. He's talented, yes. He's attractive, sure. But he ain't smart, because the attack happened. He called them right before the attack supposedly happened, and then right after, wrote them a check, gave them $100 to go buy all the stuff, said, "Oh man, officers, I'm so glad that camera was there to catch all of it." And they were like, that camera's pointing the other way. And what victim would would recognize that there's a camera. That's weird. And that's when they started looking. So he's not the most intelligent guy. Why would you want him on your team? I certainly wouldn't. And so yeah, it's just I'm making fun of him, but seriously though, like he's not very smart. But the other thing is that there is a two-tier justice system, and that's really scary, especially when we talked earlier about like what happened with Dinesh D'Souza, for instance. I mean, he's not white, he's a colored guy, he's brown, and they wanted to get him out of the equation as soon and as long as possible. And they'll do that to any of us. So if the system can be used against us, it can be used on the behalf of positively for someone else.
Right. That is very interesting. With Jussie, and the reason why I think that they're covering up him is because I think it leads to someone political. I don't think he came.
It's got to.
I don't think it's either. It has something to do with Kamala Harris, and if you look at some of the interviews with them asking about that, her body language is very nervous. I'm not sure if you even saw that clip where when it first happened and they were when it first came out that he lied, and they asked her about her tweet in support of it, and she was caught off guard. Did you see that? She was behind her like, where's my assistant? How did this question get to me, right? And then she's on the Wolf Blitzer show, and he asked her recently, and she just kind of, I don't know. It's just very strange, the same narrative that CNN now is going. I don't understand. There's so many unanswered questions. I don't know. So because their affiliation, the Fox lady, the Obamas, and this lynching. That's the other thing. Like that was just so out of place. That was just so out of place in the scam. Like he put just too much sauce on that. Like on that hole.
Yeah, he's like, oh, and there's a noose as well.
Kamala, I got you, girl. I got you, girl.
Yeah.
Let me put the put a noose around my neck. You know what I'm saying? To support. So either he's just so hungry for politics that he's out here trying to, cape and get a position with them to say, look, I got your back out here, or they were really talking about that. And I wouldn't put it past her, because if you look at the timeline, like she had just announced, like that weekend, and then this goes down.
And I'm sure they didn't know he was going to be that dumb. They were like, oh man, I thought he would do a better job.
He didn't want his phone. Well, he didn't want his phone looked at because of the what was on there with him and the guys. But there was even more on that, and that's also too, like, I'm not even buying this Chicago police outrage with
really.
No, Rahm Emanuel and them. I'm not, because the reason, here's my first tip to that, and I could be, this is total speculation. I'm going to go
right.
That. The first news conference, the superintendent, when asked what he felt justice would be for Jussie, he was very loose. He was like an apology and paying back. You know what I'm saying? So they were already talking about that, because now what's come out is that in those text messages is that Fox did reach out to the superintendent, right, to get it sent to the FBI. Do you remember that? You remember seeing that? That's in the news right now. She reached out to the superintendent at the request of Michelle Obama's assistant or whatever, to get it transferred to the FBI. Now, again, that brings some red flags, because that suggests to me that there's still obviously some deep state people in the FBI. So if we're going to transfer this case, why do you want to transfer it to the FBI? Because you know that this person we're going to maybe transfer it to is just going to bury it, and it's not going to be, you know what I mean? It's going to be a perpetual investigation. I'm still at a loss about that. I'm trying to figure that part out. Like, why would you suggest that? And then the lady responds back and says, I spoke to Superintendent so-and-so Johnson, and he says, I convinced him to send it to the FBI. Okay. So that's really weird.
Yeah.
You don't want it to go to the FBI. You want it to go to the FBI, but that would seemingly put you more at risk of being exposed, So I don't know, but I'm just not buying it, because, and then in this last press conference, the superintendent goes the same. Like
Mhm.
what do you feel would be justice? He's talking about an apology. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That just too loose.
Hmm.
And the other clue to me that not it's not on the up and up is Rahm Emanuel
Mhm.
about it. And you know that those are they're all in cahoots. You know what I mean? To me, Obama, um, Rahm Emanuel, all of that whole crowd, they are all kind of on one accord. They're singing from the same sheet. So I feel as though that
Hmm.
they are coming out with this outrage to really throw us off, right? So that they can say, so that it would not look like everybody is in on it. That's what I
Interesting.
believe. So they're coming out.
Interesting.
So they're saying we have to come out and say this, so
Mhm.
so that we can look credible as a department. In my opinion, go ahead.
Well, I do know that Tucker Carlson also thinks it's fake. I didn't think it was fake. I do remember now, like, trying to connect all the dots. I do remember that email now where she was like, "I'm going to talk to," I think his name is Eddie, to Eddie Johnson, I think it is,
That's
the
the same
superintendent.
was pissy. I'm scared.
Hmm. Yeah, he's like, "I'm gonna." She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk to him. I'm waiting to hear back or something like that for him to take it to the FBI or let the FBI investigate it." Um, and you know what's interesting too is I can't remember his title, but it's a gentleman that works in Chicago. His name is Kevin Graham. He wants um, he wants Kim Fox to be investigated
Mm-hmm.
at the federal level. Now that you say that, I don't know how much that would help.
Right.
Because at first I was like, yeah, it needs to be, but now I'm like,
Yeah, and the president is calling for it too, and I'm going, okay, but who's going to do it, and is it really going to do any good? Because they're claiming that the records are sealed. So if we can't get into those records, you know what I'm saying? What's the point of anybody looking into it and investigating?
hmm
And what is this? Let's send it to the FBI, but then it doesn't go to the FBI. It ends up going to a grand jury. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, I'm not there, but something about it is just strange to me.
oh yeah,
And again, that superintendent just has not been definitive enough to me to convince me that he's really serious about wanting some justice. Every time it was asked, it was something very light, like give us money back and apologize.
hmm I know that. Oh dang, what was I gonna say? Uh, that this organization, this media organization, BNL, they tweeted and said that they talked to the Chicago Police Department. The police department said that there was more evidence that they were going to come out with, but obviously they can't now. And then Kim Fox blamed it on the clerks.
Mm-hmm.
that the whole thing wasn't supposed to be sealed. I don't know why it's sealed. That's an error. She blamed it on the clerk's office. So
So they can unseal it, right? You know what I'm saying? If it's something as simple
yeah,
as
well then it's like, oh well then fix it and unseal it.
right, right. Because again, I think that the rabbit hole goes deeper than Jussie, and so I think again that's why everyone is kind of in on it, and I think in terms of the police department coming out and giving the details that they did, I think they obviously had to do that because these men spent those man hours on it. So they had to, and I'm sure in those conversations, the superintendent is talking with the district attorney's office. I mean,
hmm
I'm not sure if that's if is that normal. You know what I
I
mean?
don't know.
You
And
know,
she recused herself as well. Kim
right.
Fox did. She's like, oh, I talked to that family member. I shouldn't be involved. So then she let the underlings kind of take care of it, which is weird. This high profile of a case, and
Right.
you just kind of like let it go. And the other thing, I was reading this Chicago Tribune article, and the writer of this article was very upset. You could tell, and he said this is going to mess up like her reelection because these high profile cases is what people remember. And I'm paraphrasing, but it's like kind of like what people remember, and they'll go back to how she handled this, even though she may have handled every other case right. But it just so happens this famous person ends up on the scene and she doesn't handle it right. People are going to remember that. And I honestly, God, hope Chicago does.
Right. Okay, so we are wrapping up here. So, is there anything that you, as a Black conservative, really want? the public to know, because again, the part of the inspiration for me doing Ask a Black Conservative is because of the mischaracterization and the misrepresentation and the demonization of conservatives in the culture, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is my way of pushing back, my way of saying, you guys are wrong. You should ask a Black conservative instead of letting CNN and MSNBC and everybody tell you about what we're thinking and so forth. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, is there anything similar in your heart that you feel like you just want to say to other Blacks, to just the culture in general as a conservative?
The thing I want to say is mainly to the Republican Party, on a national level, and then obviously at a local level. It's kind of what I've been saying since the midterms to my own local party, is that you have all kinds of different subcultures. So you got the Blacks, you got Asians, you got all kinds of different people. Our message works because the truth is on our side. So that means at some level there's also righteousness. And I'm not saying that all conservatives are righteous. I'm saying that we stand based, we have our whole principles and our values and everything we believe is based on what is true. And so there's some level of righteousness to that. So if we have that level of righteousness with us, we should be able to go out into all of these subcultures, and maybe we'll have to shape the message a little differently. We got to talk to Black people about certain things. We talk to Indians about certain things. We talk to Chinese folks about certain things. Like liberty and freedom, all of that is attractive to everyone across every race, on every level of income, and all of that stuff, all religions. It's everybody wants to be free and wants liberty and doesn't want the government messing up their lives or all up in their business. So if we could shape it. So one of the things I said to my own party was, okay, we have stats. So we know that 75% of Black babies are born out of wedlock. So who should we be talking to? We should be talking to moms, because the thing is we have to think ahead. We want to get that generation that are like 5 years old now or in middle school.
Exactly.
Talk to the moms and get them on board and get them voting Republican. But you tell them, we're going to let you choose what school your kid goes to. We're going to make sure that your kid goes to college. We're going to make sure your kid gets an education. Every mom cares about their child, you know? So it's just something like that. You got to think about each subculture. And then on top of that, don't be like, for the white Republicans, don't be so hungry for power that you don't allow some of these people in and in kind of leadership positions. Like, and I'm not saying every single brown, Chinese, whatever, different other than white person is made for leadership. If they're made for it, convince them to take it and to take it on and to take the leadership, because we have to change the face of it. If we don't change the face of what Republicans and conservatives look like, we will always meet the stereotype. And what I found is that, and I'm not anything specific, just you can kind of feel it in the atmosphere when you go to club meetings or whatever. It's like they want to be so involved that they want the leadership because they can do it. But why don't you mentor a Black kid to do it? Or why don't you take an Asian kid and say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to run this party, and do that. And because we have to solidify locally first, and then it'll be nationally. And I think I said this on Facebook earlier today, I think Republicans are trying to talk to every Black person in the country, and they're not getting the message because they don't watch the news. You know, so yeah, leave it at that. Or I could go on and on, but
you know what? We can unpack that some, because that was my experience as well when I first got involved with the Republican Party in DeKalb County in Georgia, and some years ago, and I was just frustrated to no end, because now that although they got that in terms of you know, mentoring Black people and encouraging Black leadership in the Republican Party. I definitely saw that happening. However, I just felt like they were slow to implement certain things. You know what I mean? Because even when the certain Black people got in leadership, they were still operating like white Republicans. You know what I mean? Like, you know, timid to me. You know what I mean? Like in terms of their what they call engagement and all that type of stuff. It was
yeah,
very antiquated. And I just was really frustrated with that, and saying the same thing, like, guys, you know, you need some, I come with all these fresh ideas, and nobody wanted to invest to implement those things and to really get behind people with fresh ideas. And that's a
Well,
great.
they write the whole community off. They're like, oh, we'll never get that vote. I'm like, how do you know? The Democrats at one point, I would say back in and when FDR, he was like, I know how we can get them voting for us. Well, he lied and came up with the New Deal, and we never even got a piece of that action. But he knew what to say. And I'm like, we need to talk to Black people about economics. We talk to them about that, and we talk to them how we talk to women how their children would change, and then we teach them. It's really Judeo-Christian values, really. Really, we're at the same time kind of spreading the gospel. You know what I mean? So we have the righteousness. Let's take it into each community, but you just have to talk to each community differently, and don't be lazy about it.
Right.
Like it's just kind of like one day we'll do it. And then they'll say we got to get this community. We got to get this. Like, do you realize that presidential elections, if they don't get a piece of my county, they don't get a certain percentage, they don't win the state. So I'm like, well, let's go out there and get some Black voters.
Right.
Like, it's like 50, if a presidential candidate doesn't get like 15% of the Black vote, they lose, because a lot of them don't even come out to vote anyway. And I'm like, that's a huge percentage, and it's going to be hard. It's an uphill battle, but no one said it was going to be easy. But let's go out and do it, and let's get it.
And again, they should invest in the talent. You know what I mean? Because that's the other problem that I'm finding. They're not really willing to invest in the Black talent. I think that could help communicate that message in unique ways and be consistent at it, because that's what the investment needs. They need an investment of people being consistent, setting up something. We're gonna have a town hall, we're gonna have a after school program or something, that they are sponsoring in those specific communities to find out what those specific needs are. You know what I mean? And set up shop at, you know what I mean? And that the community knows that the Republican Party or whatever
exactly
is running this or sponsoring this, and have people there to help communicate, because we have to be meeting a need. And all of go knock on your door and tell you to come vote for Republicans. Like, why?
Yes.
I mean, and that was kind of my thought process in trying to, be a part of the Republican Party in DeKalb County when I was there some years ago. And it just was all about, let's go to the events, let's go to the convention, and all sorts of things, and let's have a little, town hall, and we're gonna have a focus group, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, can we get some investment to meet a need? Can we get, we'll go to the community and we'll find out what the need are. We're going to come back, because that's what them Democrats are doing.
Yeah.
To a Ban the Box event, they are busing people. Just this past week, they bust some folks up to Raleigh. They said they would pay for their place to stay.
Right.
I'm like, okay, so now I understand what they're talking about with Project Veritas. They are making, investments to get votes. Now that's a good initiative though, but in general, to further keep us in an inferiority complex. You know what I mean? The policies that they are busing Black people to do is to keep us in this inferiority complex. What I'm trying to say, just like what you said, we do have the truth. You know what I mean? And if we can package that in a way that meets a need as well as educate, it would be a totally different things. And then that's sometimes I feel like, are the Republicans really the control oppositions? Like, do they really want it? To me, you know what I mean? It seems like they don't want to win. They don't really want it. And that's why I say, are you guys playing along with the Democrats here? Is it like the WWE? You guys are just kind of like acting like you're not together. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about upper echelons, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's fine. Like, this is what you said, when you get within the party. That's why I was kind of like, I'm not even know if I want to be a Republican. I'm definitely voting that way.
Yeah.
In terms of the party and the history and in the spirit of my ancestors, your Booker T's and all of that. But if there was another, like a conservative party, or I don't know what we would call it, but that would be viable, I would definitely be on board with that. But I would be willing to try to help to improve the current party if they would really be open to listening and investing, like in young, smart Black people. You know what I mean? And I like Candace Owens. She's my girl. You know what I mean? I appreciate her. But we don't need any more really like mouthpieces per se. You know what I mean? We need folks in the communities leading there with investments. Like I said, an after-school program, teaching some kids how to code, You know what I'm saying? Just something that we can be there consistently
Right.
for that community.
I agree. We got to create trust. Well, we have to serve people to create trust in relationships, and then introduce them to, hey, like the thing you just said right then, do you know that that was created like 250 years ago? Like, this is what the Constitution says. This is what, what I'm sure I got the years off, but like, do you know that that's a fundamental American principle? No, I didn't. What do you mean there? Like, I went to a women's retreat at my church a few weeks ago, and one of the girls goes to Central, and she's studying psychology, but she's that type of person that's like, give me the details and I'll come up with my own conclusion. And I'm like, oh, I love you. This other young girl comes up and she's like, I don't know anything about politics. And she just sits there and listens. And then me and a friend of mine, the one that changed my mind, we start telling them about the Constitution and liberty and freedom and how socialism sucks and why and what's going on in Venezuela and the history of communism and all of that type of stuff. We didn't talk, they're two, one is a Hispanic and the other one's Black. We didn't talk to them about race at all because we don't have to. Liberty is attractive to everyone. And that's what we talked to them about. And they were hanging on our every word, telling them why feminism and why, and how, only God can do this. And there's certain rights that we have that men cannot take away, but this type of policy and that type of policy is taking this away. And she goes to school the next week and she's texting me like she's in class having an abortion debate. And I'm like, you go, girl, you get it, like that. And I'm like, this is what we need to be doing, is creating kind of disciples and showing them this is how you argue this point. This is what this means. This is where this comes from, and make them students of conservatism almost, and then which will make them leaders. And then it'll be generational, and teach them. And now you can reproduce this in yourself.
Right, absolutely. And again, to that point, just I keep saying wrapping it up, but there's two
right.
things that I want to hear you talk about, touch on, because it's right in this wheelhouse, and it's about our why, right? Why are we conservatives?
Right.
Why are we voting Republicans, right? Republican. And it first starts with the history, but at the end of the day, it's good for your well-being. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's, in terms of, because you hear people, and I even did a video about this as well, about how it's very sexy now for everyone to be like, I'm an independent,
Yeah.
I don't want to be labeled, I want to be unique, you know what I mean? And I don't want to have these labels on me. But the truth of the matter is, and that's a misnomer, because people are making choices out here politically, even though they say that they aren't. When you watch their timelines, when you have a conversation with them, they're clearly on one side or the other. And the bottom line is, what is best for your well-being? And again, in terms of us communicating it, because we sound like you said, disciples, all that sort of thing will just turn people off. Oh my God, they're trying to make them conservatives, or they're trying to make you Republican and all that type of thing. But you have to not be ashamed to say, I'm not trying to make you anything, but I would like to persuade you. You know what I'm saying? I am trying to persuade you. And the reason that I'm trying to persuade you, sir or ma'am, is because this is just simply good for your well-being. And is not the left doing the same by appealing to your moral values? Because everything with them, as it relates to the right, is lifting themselves up morally and tearing us down. It's never any real issue that they can, right? So it always turns into this moral thing where they're appealing to the people's morality, saying, if you're on the left and you believe in amnesty, or you believe in letting illegals in here just because they're saying they're fleeing persecution or whatever, you're a good person. But you're a bad person if you're on the right. And that's their whole argument for everything, is that they're making it, see, for instance, with the right versus the left, and what we're really saying is, listen, I'm not saying that you're a bad person. I'm just saying that what you're believing in is wrong. Okay? Exactly. And what they're trying to say is, you are a horrible, evil person. You know what I'm saying?
Something's wrong with you.
Yeah. We think you're actually smart, and that's why we want to reason with you, because we think we can persuade you that the ideas that we're holding is really better for your well-being. And don't you, like you said, aren't you interested in liberty? Aren't you interested in keeping more of your money? Aren't you interested in being able to go to church and not worrying about being, mowed down by, someone who hates Christians, or aren't you not worried about being able to, protest your government, or you can say that you hate the president and not worry about dying the next hour? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These things are good for your well-being, and I think we need to also be clear about that as well, because the more, that's why I call my show the clear perspective, and I'm a disciple of Dennis Prager, clarity over agreement.
Right.
And the reason why the left gets what they, has the attention of so many people, because they're vague. It pays to be vague when you are on the left, because the less details that you get and you constantly appealing to people's emotions, then you have, a following, because everybody wants to be a good person. But when you lift the hood, kick the tires, walk around that thing, and like you said, get into the details, you realize, no, this is not good for my well-being. You are constantly reinforcing, as a Black person, as a Hispanic person, you are reinforcing the inferiority complex of slavery. Constantly making me feel as though I'm inferior. And if we are really, and that's the other thing that throws me. I'm watching millennials talking about Black girl magic. They're, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm hustling, I'm grinding, right? And then you're gonna go and support Bernie Sanders. It's people that are antithetical to grinding and entrepreneurship and hustling and so forth and so on. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling now, but the other place that I wanted to go with you with that was being a Christian and involved in politics, being a Christian conservative, because there's a sect within Christianity right now, within the social justice Christians, who are accusing conservative Christians of being, too much into politics, and we're weaponizing it, and we are, supporting white supremacists, and we should be speaking out against white supremacists as Christian conservatives and all of that. What are your thoughts on that?
We should be speaking out against white supremacists. Okay. I just think there's so many bigger issues. There's like 2 white supremacists. You know what I mean? And they're not doing a lot of damage. I mean, because you just said you should be able to say what you want to say, and the Constitution gives us that right and that freedom. And so I honestly don't care. Like, if someone were to come up and call me the N-word and tell me I'm all of these things, I'm like, okay, and I'm gonna go about my day. I know I'm not any of those things, and I could care less what you say. Just don't put your hands on me and don't shoot me. Like, that's all I care about. So that kind of thing, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm dismissing that, because that's not a big deal to me, and it shouldn't be a big deal to anyone until they start killing people. We shouldn't care. Let's leave them in their corner and go on about our day. Being a Christian in politics is weird. I'll be honest. It's different. Especially when you're not just commentating and you're really involved with an actual party. It can get weird because you're constantly making sure that you're staying righteous and you're staying holy. And I don't think anyone could ever do it perfectly, but it's like you have to watch who you associate with, because every Republican and conservative is not a Christian. Like, they respect God more so than the left, and they honor him, and they say, oh, we really love the 10 Commandments and all that jazz. They respect the Bible, but they don't necessarily apply it to their life and live it 100%, or like allow like sanctification and transformation of their life and like really having a relationship with God. It's just kind of like, I have an honor and respect for it because it gave us this great country, kind of thing. But it's weird because we're called to make disciples, and we're called to preach the kingdom of God. And so that's one thing that we've been talking a lot of in church, is the kingdom and taking the kingdom wherever you go. So Jesus always talked about the kingdom. He talked about heaven a little bit, but he talked about the kingdom most of the time, the kingdom of God, and kind of spreading that culture. And so my prayer, and I still haven't figured it out, and I'm not going to lie, I don't really fully know, but my prayer has been, okay, God, how can I bring the kingdom into these situations? And I think that'll make conservatives more effective. Maybe a little bit more controversial, but that's okay. You're not a conservative if you're afraid of controversy. So I honestly don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. The only thing I know is that I pray, and I feel like God tells me to be associated with someone or join this group, and I do it. And the times where I haven't listened to that is God will show me really clearly, like, yeah, I never told you to do that. I never told you to volunteer here. And I'm like, yep, you didn't. And I get out of it immediately. But just recently, um, I I got a position on the executive committee in the party here. And I was like, I don't know. So I'm hesitant about doing anything before consulting God and feeling at peace about it. And I felt that peace about this a lot. So I said, I went ahead and did it. And I feel like God is speaking to me about all the stuff we just talked about. Like, this is how you reach the community and like serving the community and all that jazz. So that's kind of been my thing, is like getting that message out there and telling people to be confident. It doesn't matter if you're an older white person. It doesn't matter. All of those things don't matter. The differences don't matter. If we all are human beings and we have a common thing, and it's liberty and stuff like that. At the same time, I think we could probably spread the gospel a little bit to these folks, because we pray at all of our meetings and stuff like that. And a lot of what America is built on is Judeo-Christian values. And so we can play on that as Christians when we're going out and kind of talking to folks and meeting new people and kind of discipling people or whatever. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It very much does. And like I said, I love what you're saying, and I love what you're doing, and I'm just excited for you and in your future in as influencing the party, because again, with Spirit Sisters here, I feel like you could be my daughter. You know, you would be the type of daughter that I would want. You know.
Thank you.
So for right now, you're my little sister, and for real. And I like I said, you're just a breath of fresh air, and I'm just thankful that you had the opportunity to sit with me today and give me your thoughts and us chop it up over these things and just have this girl chat. So thank you so much, Nzinga.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my bad. Do you want to share where they can find you on social media, your handle and all of that stuff?
Yeah, at NZINGA1112 on Twitter. On YouTube, I'm Nzinga J, and there's an N in front of my name. And yeah, check out libertycadre.com. Me and my friends, we write a lot, we talk a lot, and maybe add me on Facebook if I have enough room for you. Zinga Johnson.
Okay. And I'll make sure that that's in the description and on the screen there. So thank you, Nzinga.
Thank you. Have a good one.